Hello, everyone. Welcome to Supervisor Soapbox. I'm Christina, joined by Maddie and Margaret. So, we have a lot to talk about today, so let's just jump right in. Sweet. Okay, cool. So, we're live. So,
Hey,
we might have some
ladies!
hiccups. Yes. Hello.
Oh my gosh, we're in the same room finally after like what feels like forever.
Yes. So much
Yeah,
has happened.
I
Yeah.
didn't realize last time we chatted that it was we were all taking a summer break. So it is so nice to be on the same screen with everybody.
I
Yeah.
totally
So
agree.
we took a short break. I mean, a lot of stuff happened in 30 days. I feel like it's been longer than 30 days, but like Christina, like you have a huge new addition. You want to share?
Yes, I birthed a human into the world. So, that was crazy. And I was telling you ladies yesterday that I think I forgot how hard newborns are to take care of. So this last month has been pretty crazy. Even on my own Instagram page, I've been pretty MIA, like for my professional page. But it feels good to be back. So that's exciting. And Margaret, like, what's been new with you?
Yeah, I moved. I got a new job that I haven't started yet. So it's been crazy. Yeah, in the past over the past like year or so, my husband and I had been talking about moving back to my hometown and just moving to a smaller city. So a lot of things just kind of started falling into place, and so um, yeah, we moved in June. It's July, yeah. We moved in June, so things have kind of been chaotic. And then I am going back to the classroom, so I'll be teaching. School starts next week. Um, so yeah, I started my career in teaching before going to ABA. So I haven't been in a classroom for 10 years. So hopefully it goes well, but I'm excited to just kind of work in a new environment and see what kind of resources I can bring to a small town that doesn't have any.
Well, and then Marty, you've had changes though too, because you left public ed and now you're in the private world, and that's been going on for a little bit over a month now, right?
Yeah, I've been doing that part-time, doing a little bit of in-home, trying to, get back into that groove and making sure I still know what the heck I'm doing. But yeah, I've been focused on that and then just focused on the mission for our organization and really still fleshing that out. That's kind of the fun thing about starting or birthing a new nonprofit is like, okay, what direction are we headed? What are we, where are our values taking us? So, and I think that that's been especially critical these last few weeks when, I mean, for lack of a better word, we're usually pretty PG, like the shit has hit the fan in many ways. And
Yes.
I'm just kind of sitting here like, where do we start cleaning up? Do we start cleaning up?
Yeah, I agree with shit hitting the fan. It's honestly kind of, I've talked to you ladies about, it's kind of scared me a little bit. Like it scared me for, because this is our livelihood, it scared me for our reputation. And so yeah, that's why I'm really excited to talk about today, like all the things that kind of been happening within the field. And like you said, how do we clean up the shit that's hitting the fan right now?
Yeah, I mean, and for those that are joining in, what we're talking about is a couple of things: the JRC and the FDA ban getting revoked on using GED devices on individuals that are autistic and that have other disabilities, and then the NCIL, the National Center for Independent Living, that put out a petition and then put out kind of a formal statement opposing the practices of ABA. And man, it's I feel like this was such an opportunity, such a potential wake-up call. And as the week progressed and I saw some responses and I saw some kind of knee-jerk reactions, I was like, oh, oh, like you just like watch the train wreck as it's happening. And I had to step back for a minute. This week was just hell for me. Like, I'm just going to be honest. From if you are one of my close friends on Bilingual Instagram, you get to see some of the inner parts of my life, and y'all really got to see some inner parts of my life when I shared that my favorite pants ripped right up the butt seam, things like that. I mean, like, everything that could go wrong this past week, like, went wrong. So on top of all those things, seeing us really just fumble the ball. I don't play football, but I think that's the appropriate analogy. Like, fumble the football at the, I don't know, what's the 0 yard line? I don't know, so you can
You,
correct me at any point.
you
Like,
you already knew more than I did right there, Monty. I didn't even
I'm
know
from
that.
Indiana. I can do basketball analogies.
okay.
Uh,
But yeah,
yeah,
and I just
everything
thought,
seemed to happen like all at the same time. I feel like the field was reacting to the FDA ban being reversed, and then on top of that, it was the NCIL thing, and um, it was just like a lot of hits, one after the other, in a very short amount of time. So
Mhm.
um, I know we've been posting a lot, and a lot of question boxes. So should we just jump right into some of the questions?
yeah, let's do that.
Yeah, I agree.
Um,
Because the ones that came across on our Instagram page. So the first one, is where can I find the responses to the NCIL? Um, I had looked through, I don't remember who had posted it, but well, it might have been Dr. Megan Miller, her video, and then she had a lot of links. And so I had checked out those different links. And I'm not sure I ever read through the actual like response. I think the thing that it hit me most about all of that was the president of the NCIL's response to all of the whatever that she had received after this was initially announced. But for the question, where can you find the responses to the NCIL?
so several folks had let me know that they got emails, right, from their state associations. And so if you're not part of a state association, you may have not been kind of privy to what those response letters looked like. I know there was a few responses that were going around via social media. And so, this was a hard thing for me because I have people that I consider very close friends, and respected colleagues that were like, hey, like, we've got to sign this petition, this response. And I read through the response and I'm like, I don't know any other way to say this, but this is gaslighting. I mean, in
Yeah.
the kindest way possible, this is gaslighting, because I don't care if the individual's got everything 100% correct in the history of our field. I can guarantee you, probably if we did a survey, 65% or more of the people in our field don't even know the history of our field 100% correctly. So, this was the first time I have really had to be aware of that, walking in that middle line that I always talk about, right? The middle road of
Right.
truth, and sticking to that, um, those values, and being able to say to people that I respect, I can't sign this.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
can't, because in no way, shape, or form does this response communicate that we're listening, that we acknowledge, and that we are interested in any sort of collaboration. So, that was hard. It's then
Hmm.
that, and I think that's part of the difficult week that I've had is, it is drawing a line in the sand, but not with people, but with actions, and systemic, just inequities that keep happening. So it was really frustrating.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that's a good response though too. That it's really like you said. Those responses were gaslighting, and I think that that's a good reflection. I hope that those people reflected on that. That like, oh wow, I never thought about it that way, that it would be gaslighting, you know?
Yeah, girl, it's okay. We're
Sorry,
real
you might.
life.
I should tell everyone, you might hear my child crying in the background. It is what it is. So, you know, don't worry. Someone's watching him. I'm not just letting him cry by himself, but I will try and mute when I can.
The dog is babysitting, but it's fine.
It's
It's
Jesus. Jesus is watching him. He's fine. Don't worry, guys.
fine.
It'll be great.
Yeah, I just think it was that first knee jerk, response. And then, Rama, she is the CEO and founder of the NCIL. She did share what some people sent to her privately, and it was abhorrent. It was, I mean, there's no other word for it. It was absolutely not only unprofessional, but it was borderline violent. I mean, I just, and she made her accounts, she made everything of hers private after that. And I think it's important that people recognize too that Rayma is a BIPOC autistic woman. So if anybody has the authority to speak on the whole matter, it's her. And we just, and I say we because I'm not going to separate myself from the field in this instance, but that's not accountability. But we have got to stop. And I've had people now that like, what do we do? We burn this bridge. What do we do? What do we do? And I just want to say, just shut the heck up.
Good
Just
point.
stop
Mhm.
talking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because the second question that we got on Instagram is there going to be an open dialogue between ABA organizations and the NCIL? Do you think there will ever, like in the future, or do you think that um,
Mm.
that bridge is gone?
That bridge is most likely gone. Um, I think if anyone, if ever, it may be by fellow autistics in the field reaching out to her
Mm-hmm.
and having, private conversations. But I think that's done. And, I thought about this and again, I'm being much more candid today. You all that follow me, y'all, you hear that Texas, y'all that follow me, know that I'm all about compassionate education and really trying to make it a safe space for neurotypical practitioners to sit in uncomfortable spaces, but to learn from it, right? Like it's a safe space to be uncomfortable. But today is just one of those days where I just, I really want to hammer down some points that really can't be sugarcoated. And, I think it's really ironic that it's the autistic in me that identified that the supposed verbal behavior experts just effed up the most
Mm-hmm.
important piece of communication ever. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm the one with the communication deficits.
Mm-hmm.
And so, that was the first, like, just, I don't have anything to say. I don't have anything to
No, for
say.
sure.
Be like,
Well, I mean, I think I feel like with the news of that, um, so whatever it was, they had didn't they presented like an opposition to ABA,
Mhm.
and then it had to be voted on, which it passed. So that's a formally they have opposed the practice of ABA. Um, and
Yeah.
so I think when things like that happen, it it is serious. Like there, you need to
Absolutely.
be stern. You need to have real conversations about it, because if more organizations start doing this and the response from the field is the same, it's
Agreed.
not going to get any better. So it is time to
Mhm.
to be serious about actually listening and doing something about it.
Well, and I think our fields had a history of like doubling down and digging their heels in the sand and being like, no, this is why we're right and you're wrong. And that has been, I mean, it's, if you look back, it's been a history of what we do. And so I think now it's literally like, no, stop, listen, and change your own behavior. And I don't, I hope that there's something like that was going to start happening, because I think it is serious. It's scary, serious, that
Mhm.
you already knew that there was some opposition towards this practice because of past procedures. And so it's things should change moving forward. We shouldn't have this ugly history, about us anymore. We should be moving forward. We should be progressing. So then if we look at the next question, does challenging society, not the individual to change, sound like lawnmower parenting? Someone asked that question. What are your thoughts?
So this is my autistic brain. I don't understand the question. I'll be honest. I'm like, what does that mean? So I don't know if someone can like clarify that.
I think like lawnmower parenting is like, I don't know, someone could Google lawnmower
I'm
parenting.
gonna
It
look it
might
up.
be a type of style. I mean, I
Yeah,
think just challenging society, not the individual to change. I think that's a good thing right there, right? That we should be looking at. And I think that we have. Like, if you look at so many different practices, not practices, but like things, norms, behaviors, society has changed, right?
mhm.
So if you look at, interracial marriage, that was like totally not okay years ago, 56 years ago. We challenged society, not the individual. So if you look at I think that that's a valid thing. Look at society needs to start changing, not the individual. Inclusion in general education classrooms. We need to challenge education, not the individual, right? So I think that that's a valid point. Um, how it kind of relates to our field, though, I think that we're always kind of looked at as let's go back to Madi, like your social validity forms, when you talk about what's socially valid to the individual or the family, the cultural norms, all of those pieces. So how can we kind of take that
Yeah,
into let's challenge society, not necessarily the individual, and how we can help?
yeah. Well, and really quickly, I'm glad you brought up the social validity piece. Like, I think going back to our field's response to it, if our field would have just stopped and realized this was a self-report, this was a self-report of social validity measures by individuals who had experienced ABA. And our field, unfortunately, in part of their response was like, let us introduce you to disabled clients and families who can share with you. And you're telling this to an organization that was founded by and is run by disabled individuals. Like, that's not only insulting, that's completely like putting these individuals against each other potentially. But as far as like the social validity, um, I we don't do it. And I don't care like who is going to come in and say like, "Oh, I am about social validity." Where is it? I want to see it. We don't practice that in our field. How many times have you passed out a social validity questionnaire after you've done a parent training going over the goals, after you've gone over the instructional protocols? How are we going to how are we going to determine those things? Sorry, I like got I was like, wait a second.
No, yeah,
Are we
something
live?
happened on our screen. Yeah, it's
Something
all good.
happened. So
You
my
kept
brain
going, Marty. Don't
whirl.
worry.
Um,
No,
so
that's
we have
I like
to
that point.
we don't use it. So
No.
and I just saw, and this is again the continued fumbling of the proverbial football. I just saw where someone was like, I'm going to write a book or a chapter in a book, and I am looking for adults who have received ABA services in the past or currently receive them. I'm sorry, if you have to go out looking for those individuals, you know what that tells me? Or what I want to ask is, one, where's all of your damn social validity measures for the last 20 years of clients that you've been serving? Because if
Mhm.
you have to go out in the community and look and ask, that tells me you did zero follow up on post treatment or post intervention services.
Yeah.
So, social validity is the key to changing everything that we do. And if we can't handle and if we can't create social validity measures that ask the parent and the client, especially in the outcome section, there's the three components, right? The goals, the interventions used, the instructional procedures used, and the outcomes. If we don't have questions in the outcomes that directly ask, did this intervention affect you or cause trauma, or did it prevent trauma? Right? Did what we do improve your quality of life? This is the qualitative piece of it that we just we pretend that we care about, but I would love to know what percentage of people give a pre-intervention social validity measure, a during intervention social validity measure, and a post, and then a post like
Mhm.
5 years down the line, because I guarantee you we're not doing that.
Well, and I just want to say too, like we always say, like what's meaningful, like we'll take the eye contact issue really quick, because I think we can apply that to everything. Everyone says, oh, we live in America, eye contact, it signifies so many different things, so that's why we should teach it, kind of thing. And we all disagree with that, right? Because and I always hear like, well, when you go get a job, well, not necessarily. Like, what I look, I worked in the service industry, I worked in the restaurant bar industry for a long time before I became a BCBA. Yeah, eye contact was important, right? When I would have to work in that industry.
Mm-hmm.
If I didn't if eye contact wasn't meaningful to me, or I couldn't do that skill, I wouldn't work in that industry. So that's the other thing too, right? My husband, he doesn't work in that industry. It's like that piece, like you teach skills that are going to be meaningful to that person and their life. So I think that we're kind of just, our field tends to overgeneralize skills and say, oh, we need to teach this because we want you to be a productive member of society. But instead, we need to go back and say, no, what's meaningful to you, that's what we can help you with. And that's what's gonna, help you in your life to come. So, hey, eye contact's not meaningful to you, so we don't need to focus on that right now. So it's those pieces, and I think that that's where, and that's a very broad blanket kind of example. I mean, we could funnel down even more if we wanted to, but just to give that example, like I think we step away from the word meaningful, because it needs to be meaningful in our what we do and what we teach. And by the way, I did look up lawnmower parenting. I think you did too, Margaret. It's basically helicopter moms, right? That's what it is. You're a helicopter mom. You're overbearing, constantly
Well,
trying to
and
control.
it's more, I think taking all the challenges away from your children. Like if you see
Coddling.
something bad
Yes.
happening to your kiddos, instead of letting them figure out how to fix it, you fix it for them.
And I don't agree with that. I think we should challenge society. I work in public education. I love challenging it. Yes, this child with different needs should be included in your classroom. We're not having a not everybody needs to fit in the box kind of mentality. So we should challenge society, absolutely. And we should go back to what's meaningful to this person. And it's going to help everyone else. Like and we have data to show that. So,
Mhm. So,
um,
I'm gonna add something to that, and like I said, I'm salty today, so I'm sorry,
I
but
love it.
I'm sorry.
No,
Just
I
spice
want a
it up.
margarita with your saltiness, Maddie. This is amazing.
That question to me comes from a place of not recognizing that that individual asking exists within the framework of society that has allowed them the privileges to not experience ableism, racism, homophobia, whatever.
100%. Hmm.
Because if you are not aware of the systemic fallacies in society, not just in our field, because our field
Hmm.
is a microcosm of society.
Hmm.
I had a great question from Dr. Malika. She's like, what are your thoughts on this, this kind of argument that this is a societal issue, it's not an ABA issue? I'm sorry, you can't say that the framework right now that our society operates under is not also present in our field, especially when our field is dominated by a certain population of individuals.
100%. Yeah. Hmm.
So I think that question comes from someone that has never probably experienced that we're challenging a framework that may not affect you directly, but it by golly affects me as an autistic, as an indigenous minority, as a woman.
Hmm.
So that question I think is I'm gonna kind of call it. Like really, it's not lawnmower parenting, not in the least. Um,
No. And it's not to shoot down the person that asked this question. I applaud you for putting it out there.
Yes.
Just as much as I hope the person is applauding us for clapping back and saying, this is our answer. No, it's not lawnmower
Yeah.
parenting.
No, it's not. And I challenge you to self-reflect. I
100%.
challenge you, in a safe space. Like, and if that's a conversation that needs to keep happening, to understand, because when you are born in a society that is meant for you to operate smoothly under, you're not going to see the workings of it that oppress others. I mean, that's just the
Good
way
point.
it's meant to
Hmm.
happen.
Yeah.
And it happens that way. So I don't fault that individual at all for that question. I think that's the start of self-reflection and growth. So
So for the next question, I was like really kind of intrigued on this question, Margaret, when you posted it in for for us to view. I don't know how to answer this question, so I'm just gonna ask it. How do you feel about the NCIL comparing ABA to colonization?
oh, I've got some strong thoughts on that.
Yeah, I'm really curious because I'm just gonna hand it over then
I
to
know,
you.
Maddie, you're getting fired up.
Yeah, well, and
It's a
again,
safe
like,
space.
it's a what?
A safe space for you.
It's a safe space. I don't know. I think we have to look at the fact that our practices are still biased, even under the disguise of something like evidence-based.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to pull this, I'm going to talk about this a little bit because, evidence-based practices, we know, are three components, right? You have the professional expertise, in other words, the individual feeling comfortable enough to apply the intervention. You have the research, internal and external, and then the third piece is the client's values and preferences. Okay, so with that, we cannot ignore that evidence-based practices are biased. So think about colonization, colonialism, whatever, until we acknowledge that by overlooking client values and preferences means that we are ignoring minority and marginalized culture and upholding majority neurotypical non-disabled values and preferences as the only acceptable norm. So,
Excellent.
short answer, yes. I do believe right now there is still practice. I'm not saying it's everyone. And I also want to kind of preface, we have to separate ourselves from our work and the work
Mm-hmm.
that we do. We
Mm-hmm.
have to. This is a part of who you are, but this is not who you are. And so if we
Mm-hmm.
can't maintain philosophic doubt and objective scientific thinking as we are challenging this field, and I'm challenging this field out of love for
Mm-hmm.
its potential.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think, we have to sit back and recognize that if I am doing evidence-based practices, but I am completely negating autistic culture, if I'm negating BIPOC culture, if I'm negating, Islamic, LGBTQ plus culture, in that, we are in a sense assimilating individuals to fit that white male neurotypical norm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just no other way around it. And I in my trainings, I will talk about goals and interventions that are devoid of context, and that context being the individual's preferences, values, cultural, aspects. If it's devoid of those things, it's the most dangerous goals that we can create.
Yeah, I love it. No, I think, and I feel like, I mean, I could be shooting in the dark here, but I feel like the board is. I want to hope that the board is starting to understand that piece by saying, I don't know, something as small as like understand that taking cultural norms into consideration when you're going into homes, right? Like you should be doing that, and that could be it's a very small, tiny little step. But I do agree with everything you just said, Marty. Like I think that you should be taking if you're not taking those things into consideration, then yes, you're just really reinforcing white norms. That's really what you're doing, and that's not beneficial to that client or that family.
Yeah, I mean, if we think about the schools for Indigenous children in Canada, and some of the quotes that have come from historic, leaders that were putting these children in those schools, it was like, we are going to take the savage out of this child, calling natives and Indigenous people savages. I mean, I see it in a lot of the actions, not necessarily word for word, but we're going to take the autism out of the individual. We're going to take this, and how is that different?
Good point. Nope, most definitely. So good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So let's keep going then.
Plugging along. And also, we have my husband who is running all of this magically. I don't know how. He is monitoring the chat. So if you have questions, please feel free to ask them. And we will do our best to answer them in the time that we have. We're going to respect Christina's time away from her newborn, and not go over 45 to 60 minutes. Yeah, because we could
That
probably
might
be
be pushing
forever.
it.
Yeah, it might be
Well,
pushing.
I'm pumped, so he'll be fine. Don't worry,
It,
guys.
yeah. Well, I think the next question is interesting because honestly, it's something that I have been struggling with for the last year. Obviously, I'm going back to the classroom, but the next question is leave the field or continue to make changes where I can. Um, I for me, like moving back to my hometown closer to the majority of family, like I've always wanted to do that, and there aren't like ABA clinics here. So um, I was looking towards the school, but as things have happened this summer, I've I haven't been mad about not working directly in the field of ABA right now. I think that there's a lot that I'm still doing to still be attached to the field. Obviously, I have supervision students and things, and um, I think these conversations are obviously very important to have with new people entering the field. Um, but it's hard. It's hard being in a field that is just under fire, and some people aren't doing a lot to like settle the fire.
It's
Yeah,
on fire.
yeah,
It's not
yeah.
under fire. It's on
Fire.
fire.
Yeah, so it's interesting, but then also I also think too that I don't know if some of the bigger ABA companies necessarily are like aware
Good point,
of
Margaret.
all of these things as well. I know in Indiana there's a ton of centers. That's mainly what ABA looks like in Indiana, and I've worked at several of them, and I don't know. I don't know if some of those bigger ABA companies are aware of all of these things, and I honestly don't think that people will make themselves aware until it starts to affect the business. Um,
Until the breeze of shit hits their area, right? Makes it all the way over there. Like
yeah.
the overspray of
Well, and isn't that kind of like it? I mean, that's when I get infuriated because I'm like, how do you not know about this? And then
Mhm.
it's because it doesn't affect the dollar yet. And so then that gets really sad and scary, and I'm glad you brought up this point, Margaret. Like just toggling between the two, like that's something that you kind of dealt with is toggling between the two, because it's it's like we get into this field because we want to help. Like that's really why you get into the field. You have this true passion for the science. You want to help. Um, the clientele you work with, like that's like my favorite part, or the clientele I work with. And so and then it just gets so frustrating because you sound like you're on the crazy train when you're over on this side, and you're like, bro, you shouldn't be doing that anymore. And then they want to these agencies, these big organizations spew data at you that's like from 1975, and you're like, what? No, let's come up with the
Mhm.
times. So it is frustrating.
And
you
all of us
know
have seen on an individual level
Mhm.
it helping. I mean, we've all, witnessed kids saying their first word, being independent. Like as individuals, we know how life changing it can be for kids and families. But we're attacking it from a compassionate, getting to know the families and their needs. But then, it's interesting talking to supervision students and hearing their stories, and it's like these things do happen. They
yeah.
do still
Hmm.
happen. Um, Maybe individually we don't see these things happen, or you know, put different things in place ourselves, but people are, because I hear stories about it all the time, as I know, you know, you two do as well.
Hmm.
Yeah, and let me just tell you like the expanse of the impact of poor practices. And I didn't realize this until I had a conversation. We have a brand new next door neighbor. He and his wife are from Italy. They're professors. And we were just talking. And we getting to know each other, asking what each other did. And I told him I worked with, autistic children. He's and I'm gonna just totally trash an Italian accent, but he was like, "Ah, yes, yes, you are in the ABBA, the ABBA." I was like, "Oh yeah, ABA, yeah." He's like, "Oh yes, yes. I used to work one on one with autistic boy, and oh, it was very difficult. He hit, he bite." He said, "But the therapist," he said, "he come in and he says, no, you don't smile at the boy." You don't talk to the boy. You give demand and you hold demand. And if he does not do, you make him. You put his hands, you demand, and then you give
Oh
him
my God.
spittle. And
And then you
I'm
hid and you're like, what?
like, fuck.
Yeah, literally.
And I'm like, was this like a long time ago? Oh no,
Yeah,
no, no, like 3 or 4 years ago. This is in Italy. This is in
yeah,
Italy. Okay. We're talking globally now that this is a problem that's happening, and the guy who had no training, that was the one-on-one, was like, I thought it was building relationship and helping to learn how he communicates. I'm like, yes, that's what it's supposed to be.
yeah,
And we have people that are like, no, no expression, no emotion. I'm like, you're acting autistic towards the kid. Like, I mean, you want to talk
yeah.
about no emotions, no expressions. I don't understand that.
But
And that,
and that's what I loved about Hanley had talked about that. The single biggest mistake that we've made in our field is to do that. No expression, no like emotion towards a child who's basically in a state of trauma,
yeah,
and that has been the biggest thing that's been wrong that we've done. And then you hear that story and you're like, oh, that's what people think this field is, because is it? Like then you start to think like, is that what this field is now? Like it's it's
it's
embarrassing.
cringy. It's cringe.
Hmm.
Oh, it's.
Yeah.
I just wanted to like. I'm not
Yeah.
associated with these people. That's not my ABA, right? Like that's what you just kind of. But that is the typical gaslight response. Like that's not
Right.
my ABA. Well, it's
Mm-hmm.
somebody.
Or that, well, that's bad ABA. That's
Yeah,
bad ABA. And it's like, but is it? Because they're doing it in Italy. you
yeah.
know?
So to go back to that question, to that person, self care is the most critical thing right now in this,
Agreed.
and you need to find where in this you want to be. Everyone's role is different. I think I posted something about that the other day or a while. I don't know. The days are all running together. For me, my role, I can't do legislation and changing it and completely getting rid of ABA. Like that's not going to happen in our lifetime. And what are we going to fill the void with? Institutionalization, because sometimes that's all parents have is 40 hours of high quality babysitting.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
So what are we going to fill the gap with? So for me, my goal is to educate and provide an alternative to the person that is in a home today, right now,
Hmm.
working with a child, and telling them it doesn't have to be that way.
Hmm.
You
Hmm.
don't have to do it that way. It shouldn't be done that way.
Hmm.
Like Hanley says, you work from joy.
Hmm.
I have a client that
Exactly.
we have been working with for 2 months, and we finally have joy.
Hmm.
Finally, 2 months of
Hmm.
undoing trauma. And we
Hmm.
have a little guy that rides his bike and sings, riding my bike,
Hmm.
pedal, pedal, pedal. First day, never would have happened.
Hmm.
So you have to find where your place. And you know what? It's not a one and done decision. If you need to leave and then you come back,
Hmm.
then you do it. Like there is no, you're not a traitor. You have to do what's best for you. Uh,
Yes. No, I think that's a fantastic answer. It's just do what's best for you.
Do you
Uh,
think that I'm going to go in a different, or ask another question, I guess. Um, do you think that after like the NCIL took this stance that other organizations are going to start to follow suit?
Oh yeah,
I'm afraid of that.
absolutely.
I mean,
Absolutely.
I think TRICARE is already kind of starting to, right? TRICARE is already kind of saying it's not effective, you know? And then I think agencies' responses to that are because I hear that they're making it more difficult for
Mhm.
agencies. So agencies are just saying, well, then fine, we're not going to take any TRICARE patients. All you're
Yeah.
doing is reinforcing that, you know, because then TRICARE is like, sweet, we don't have to pay you.
Yeah.
So that's my fear is that it's going in that direction. Why do you think it's going to happen? You think it's happening already. So,
Oh
you
yeah.
know,
I mean, it's going to happen. So what are we going to do? And I
right.
know that there have been some closed door meetings with some large associations talking to each other. And my frustration is you have autistics in the field. Why are you not
Hmm.
pulling them into this conversation?
Hmm.
I don't understand that. But you do you. Good luck.
100%.
I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing. Um, but and I think I need to say this. Our field, we've got to step back. And what I need the field to recognize is that we are trying, this is like a family. Okay, let's consider ourselves a family. We are asking for generational curses to be broken. Okay, we talk about the father of ABA. We had a scientist who took Skinner's work of observation and learning all of these things and decided to apply it to autistic children. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and say a mad scientist.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. And if you don't agree with me, please read every bit of Lovas's work. And the problem is instead of our field going full stop, nope, not okay. This was totally wrong. Like, yes, it may work, but not in this way. We created an entire discipline
Hmm.
from a mad scientist who was not even a practitioner.
Hmm.
And that
Yep.
was generations ago. And now what we are saying is it's time to break this generational curse. This is not, this is a dysfunctional family and a dysfunctional way for our field to run.
I love it. So then let's keep going because we got some good
Yeah.
questions coming
I
up.
know there
Go,
are a lot of good.
yeah, they're good. I'm excited. Okay, going back to the NCIL, do you ladies feel like we have taken a step back from advancing the field? We've always been criticized, and it's becoming even more difficult to disseminate the field.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's, but but then I think it's like I think as more analysts start to say more like-minded analysts, and this is why I just I feel like I found my family with you two and Leap is that I felt for a long time that I was on the crazy train that because other fellow like-minded analysts were very like no eye contact that I give you a skittle when you do what I wanted, right? And that was the way I was trained, and then um, I love Dr. Rajaraman on one of the he was on behavior observations. He made such a good point when he said if it feels icky, then it probably is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always felt that like God, I feel like a monster. And so when he said that, I felt like something clicked and I'm like, that's right. I wasn't crazy. Like I it always felt icky because I didn't want to be that type of analyst, and so it's, I think that if you find more like-minded analysts that say, no, let's right our wrongs, let's redo it, let's listen. How do we progress forward? I'm hoping that it becomes better to disseminate the field. However, when you have big movements like this that are basically saying it's colonization and it's trauma inducing, and then organizations don't know, don't care, the board doesn't put out a statement, it's scary because it's kind of like how do you not respond to something like this.
Yeah.
So
I'm just going
I
to
don't know.
say that I'm assuming that the board right now is just being held hostage by little gremlins and they can't issue a
Let's
response.
hope that, yeah,
I'm giving
that's
the total benefit of the doubt. Like they're just being
hopefully.
held hostage somewhere and screaming, help me, like,
Yeah.
uh,
Well, and I wonder if, I think as like a whole, the field doesn't have a lot of accountability. So my husband does data analytics for a hospital, and one of the things, like specifically that he's been doing a lot with is like the feedback that the patients give to the doctors. So he's been working on like developing scorecards and things, for lack of a better word, that patients would fill out about the different physicians or healthcare system or what have you. Um, and then those types of ratings, insurance companies could see that it could affect like reimbursement or whatever. And I feel like that's a big a big thing right now, is that it's just kind of like a free for all in the field of ABA. And one of the things, I mean, if you've ever heard me go on a tangent, is that ABA looks so different by state. Like nothing is the same. What happens in Indiana is different than what happens in California and in Texas. And there just has to be some kind of
Consistency.
similar things happening between everything.
yeah.
And I don't know who it is that can put things like that in place. If it's up to like insurance companies to start this like rating system, or just like feedback from clients on like a global
Yeah. And
scale.
the sad thing is the fact that we have to have the conversation of connecting that to dollar signs. That to me is like, that's pretty explanatory right there. The fact that for it
Mm-hmm.
to make a difference at this point, you have to tie that to dollar amounts. And so as far as like Trina's question, like I feel like we stepped through, well, no. I'm not going to say we stepped through a wormhole and we jump back. We are peeling back the onion layer and realizing we never progressed forward.
Agreed.
So this
Totally.
whole like with 2020 and 2021 and the BIPOC, and blacks experiencing all of this and us going like, oh my gosh, I thought we progressed so far. No.
Agreed.
Mhm. We just had the means to show and it's revealing itself. And so unfortunately, I don't think we really have progressed. And I'm saying that as a collective organism, there are
Right.
pockets. There are pockets of individuals and tiny clinics
Mm-hmm.
and nonprofits doing phenomenal things, but those are not the face of ABA.
hmm hmm
The
Right,
face
because
of
they don't have the
ABA,
money.
yeah, no, the face of
Yeah.
ABA is organizations connected to the JRC.
hmm Yeah. Exactly.
So
Yes.
why would we think that people are going to see anything other than that face? And
So
so
then
that,
that's
go ahead.
I was like, that just segues into the next question of how do we do better then? What are those suggestions of how we could do better?
So this is from Diana from ABA Sin Fronteras. How can we disseminate our science? I think right now it's more about, as a field, we need to go back and learn our history. We don't have
Yes.
enough individuals that know every bit of the history of our field. Because I sent you ladies some of those Lovas articles. This was did we get that right? That this was pre Belmont Report, pre Nuremberg Code, or was it right at like the,
It was it was within like 5 years of it,
Okay.
but
okay. So I'm sure there
yeah.
was like no need to get IRB approval for the things that
hmm
Lovas did to these
hmm
children. And so
hmm
would that fly today? Hell no.
But isn't it still kind of flying today? Wasn't there a recent study done on measuring like how to scare autistic children or fear or something like that?
Yep.
It still is flying today, and then like you said, what's being done at the JRC, it still is happening today, and we have all these measures in place. So that was
Yeah,
just a
I
random
want
squirrel
to I
thought.
want to see the social validity questionnaires from the clients at JRC.
100%. With even all of their like, oh, we have to go through an extensive checklist in order to get consent from families to do, shock treatment on these behaviors. It's like,
Yeah.
I agree. I want to see the social validity on that piece then.
Well, and so, Diane, I don't know. I think we have to pause the dissemination and we have to move to acknowledging the history and that being the conversation, and being able to say Lobos didn't even identify functions of the behaviors of these
Mm-hmm.
kids.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing about functions of these behaviors, why they were doing it. It was just a hard slap on the thigh, like, or
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
shocked,
Mm-hmm.
So but we based an entire discipline on the results of this man's work. Why
Mm-hmm.
else would we think that we were going to have anything different, right? Generational curses. Like, we
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to, instead of disseminate, man, what a beautiful opportunity had someone reached out to Rama and said, "You are absolutely right. How can we make this better? Let's work together.
Mm-hmm.
What can we do as a collaborative effort to get this right from this point forward?"
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What do what? I'm sorry.
Well, and I think, I mean, I think you're definitely right. I think one of the misconceptions, perhaps, that like we are under the impression of, maybe because I went down a rabbit hole of the JRC um, earlier, a few months ago, when I feel like more people were just beginning to talk about it, and if you look at articles and watch videos and things, you're kind of under the impression that the GED devices are being used with people with like severe self-injury. That's what it looks like. That's the information that you can find about it.
Mm-hmm.
But then I feel like this topic has given other people a voice to speak up and say, no, it was used with me. And I mean, so you see these videos and it's horrifying, because I do think that you are under the impression that it's just being used with people with severe self injury. And as you dig a little deeper and people start to talk about it more, um, it's being used more often than perhaps um, people realize.
Yeah, because I mean, if you look at it's a means to control, and so when you allow other humans to control, you could go down a rabbit hole too of just even, you know, so it's not what I'm trying to say is that's not surprising to hear that, Margaret, is that yeah, it's because it's excessive force. So then now it's not just for severe self-injury. For a person who can't truly give consent, um, it becomes it's truly excessive force for various other things. So it's sad that it's not shocking to hear that.
No pun intended.
Yeah, I realize I did that. Um, That was an accident.
Sorry.
Okay, someone made a comment actually too. During one of my very first experiences in this field, I watched two men restrain a teenage boy and force him to wipe a table using hand over hand. We're taught you how to follow through with the task no matter what. And sadly, that is not surprising. I think that that's how everyone's taught. Um, it's how I was taught. It was something that I kind of really condition myself. You follow through, you follow through, you place the demand, you got to follow through. Um, and I really thank Dr. Hanley for kind of saying, no, stop. And Dr. Rajaraman who's saying, no, if it feels icky, stop. You don't
Yeah.
have to do that.
Well,
So,
ladies, how many times have your husbands like just left a trail of clothes and not picked up after themselves? Like,
yeah,
you
yeah.
hand over hand, no, you're gonna pick up these damn clothes, right? Like, or how many times have you not followed through with doing like wiping the table? I just, as somebody with
Or
disability, it
yeah.
just baffles me that you would never do this to a
Mhm.
neurotypical non-disabled child. If my 6-year-old is like, I'm not doing this. I'm like, cool. Well, I guess we'll wait to do whatever it is you're wanting to do. But I'm not going to go over there and like, you're gonna do you know what I mean? Like, I would so I don't know where the like the disconnect is.
I
That's
think, but the disconnect, I think, is about a marginalized group of people, disabled individuals. I I can control you, therefore I'm going to. I put the demand, you follow through. And I think that that's where we have to separate, that
Mm-hmm.
it's I'm here to help. That's all I'm here for, not to control. And I think that that's where we have to kind of start separating ourselves, is that, we're not here to control, to help, um, in any way, that we can. Um, and I think that it comes more from a controlling place. And this idea of, oh, they're winning if you let them do it. It's like, what? they, they're a
Winning
person,
what?
they have autonomy. Yeah, exactly. I remember that one, being told by a supervisor, if you keep letting this happen, then they'll win. And it's like, but I'm not playing a game. It's just, I don't know. It's
Here you go. Here's the medal. I don't want it.
Yeah,
Like, I don't.
yeah, most definitely. I see this a lot in education too. No one likes to be made a fool by, a child and an adult. I think that power struggle happens a lot too. Um, so yeah, I think, you know, everyone has a story where they were taught to follow through no matter what, unfortunately, and it doesn't have to be that way. So,
No.
um,
Yeah, I feel like I always try to focus a lot on like replacement language,
100%.
and to like ask for a break or to do it later, or you know those types
Mhm.
of things. 'Cause,
Pivoting, right? Let me pivot really quick and redirect it. And how can we do this better? You're not ready.
yeah,
Something. I worked with an administrator one time who had a pretty difficult student, and he was aggressive in the office. And she was telling me the story, and how, his mom was going to come pick him up, and she wanted him to sit in a desk, and he wasn't, and she couldn't force him. And I just love that he was screaming, and it's in the school office, so it's, of course, a scene is happening, parents are coming in and out, and she just kind of said, like, okay. And then I just thought, use your brain, instead of like trying to control him. She had this moment of like, okay, how can I use my brain to get him to just wait, until his mom comes to see him. And she just kind of showed him the desk, like, do you want to sit down? And then he got up and sat, because he was sitting on the floor, and he got up and sat at the desk, and he just wanted to see out the window. But when I'm having these difficult moments, I kind of channel that principle, and I'm like, use your brain, Christina. What can we do? Instead of trying to control a student, because it shouldn't be about that. It's just use your brain. How can I teach or help this person in a better way, in a more ethical, reasonable, meaningful way?
Mhm. And I'll go a step further, like asking yourself, do they even want my help right now?
Yes, right.
Like
Yes.
there are times when I'm up here, and my husband's like, "Do you want help?" Nope.
Yeah, yeah,
Well, leave me the heck alone.
yeah.
And we don't do that
Agreed.
for disabled individuals and especially disabled kids. Like,
Yes. Hmm. Yeah, no, I came downstairs yesterday. My newborn was screaming, crying for like a good half hour, and I walked downstairs, and my husband was gonna take the bait. I said, "Don't do it." Like, I, I was like, "No, I need to see this through." And I
mhm,
put him in the swing, and I just sat on the couch, put my head down, and then he wouldn't stop crying. So then my husband just said, "Can I take him?" I said, "Yes, okay, fine." But it was like that moment where I was like, "No, I'm not ready." So yeah, it's such a good point, Marty. Like, just realizing, like, maybe they just don't want help right now.
mhm. Yeah.
So the next one is, as an RBT and a student, I feel like I don't have enough knowledge and credentials to help disseminate the field. How do I go about this besides continuing to educate myself? And I think this is a really good one, because this is like new up and coming BCBAs, people that love this field and they want to have a future in it. And I feel like they're vulnerable to it. So how do
so
we help? How do we help
yeah,
those
well,
ones?
I was just gonna say, Madi, like, what are your favorite organizations or organizations that you follow outside of ABA? I feel like sometimes you send links and it's like, oh, I wasn't even aware of this organization. So what other organizations would you recommend like following?
Yeah. So right now, I don't know that any like organized group is someone that I would recommend. Individuals, Dr. Yulika Foreman, if you're on social media, she is the expert ally. Um, you know, really, I would say seek out individuals that And this is where it has to be, you have to really delineate, like, is this individual educating for me to improve, or are they educating for me to feel shame and to just like want to throw in the towel? There's a big difference. And so
Hmm.
you're going to
Hmm.
find people that are educating and actually want people to take the knowledge to become better. But then there are people that are just, and I'm talking about my own autistic community, not just, the ABA community. You're going to be very careful as to who you listen to, because you can find yourself going down a very dark path. And I think, Christina, you and Margaret both were like, I had to unfollow some people because
Hmm.
it was so hard. And I get it. Like, you cannot, wanting to learn does not mean having to subject yourself to people really traumatizing you. I mean,
Hmm.
there is no excuse for a traumatized individual, and I'm going to say this, and I know I'm probably going to get backlash, to then go and traumatize other people. I get having an impassioned response. I get sharing, you know, passionately and angrily that these things have hurt you, but that is a very distinct difference from going after and threatening and wanting to
Hmm.
cause harm to individuals. So, you want to make sure that when you're educating yourself, Trina, first and foremost, if it's on ABA topics, Hanley,
Hmm.
um, Pat Fryman. I don't even think he's a BCBA, but Pat Fryman
Pat
is
Fryman
like,
is
is he? Okay,
fantastic.
I can't remember who it is that's okay.
I think Amy Gravino, she's
Yes.
gotten some good stuff. Amy Gravino for sure.
Um,
Um,
and then if you are looking for like issues related to neurodivergence, neurodiversity, like the autistic experience, it needs to come from autistic people.
hmm. Hmm.
That's another thing that, and I'm not gonna jump on the soapbox about it, but I'm seeing more neurotypical businesses start to jump on this bandwagon. We're not there in the relationship yet. For
Hmm.
neurotypical analysts to start having these neurodiversity type of trainings without it being led by an autistic individual, and that's dangerous territory. So I just kind of want to just make that plug. Like, if you want to learn about some of these more reformed ABA type things, Hanley, Fryman, I mean, they've been around. They're
Hmm.
not teaching us anything new, and Hanley will
Hmm.
tell you that.
Hmm.
Um, but again, this is the product of generational curses. Um, and then again, if you want neurodivergent focused training, you need to be with you need to be seeking that from autistic neurodivergent individuals. So, oh, Margaret.
Well, I didn't know. You can say no. Um,
um,
but
yeah. So
yeah,
yeah,
agree
I,
with
I'll, I'll I'll hint at it.
that.
There is going to be a conference coming, and I am currently working with several people not in the field directly. But this is going to be a conference run by all autistic professionals, and not just BCBAs, SLPs, OTs, um, therapists and educators that maybe don't fit those credentials but are working as like behavior support, as autistic support coaches and whatnot. And so yeah, that's in the works. So I'm really excited about it. It's time. I think it's
Hmm.
time, if we're really serious about reform, that the voices that are speaking on it and sharing their expertise from an autistic lens needs to happen.
Hmm. I agree. I agree. And just to I really can't add anything that you just mentioned from that previous question from Trina Marty. I think that was a very eloquent response. Is just seek out individuals who are really kind of saying the same thing. It is hard. I think that you do feel like you're alone sometimes, especially as an up and comer, but you're not. There's more like-minded people out there, you know.
Yeah, it's definitely a lonely road, and I can speak that from experience. So it's, you have to protect yourself, but be willing to be vulnerable to learn too. I mean, it's a
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I think that even through this process, like I've had to check my own ableism, of well, that's having these aha moments of that's quite ableist for me to think that, or um, or saying things and dealing with people's um, defensiveness. I mean, that's probably going to happen too, and realizing that some people don't want to hear what you have to say and they might disregard it, and so kind of recognizing that piece too, you
Mhm.
know.
I think
Well,
it's important to find um, a group of people that you can trust and to like talk about different things. I mean, I know the three of us have even had conversations, and I've started in one place, and then after talking to you both, I've ended in another place. And it's important to be able to have those conversations kind of privately, I guess, to think through those thoughts and not just
Yep.
like air your gut reaction to
Yep.
different situations. And I do think a lot of people are trying to form those spaces. I know the supervisor's last call that we've been doing the last Thursday of the month has been really cool. I think we've planned topics. Um, but then it's become so evident that people just need to talk and
Hmm.
feel supported, and
Hmm.
so it has just really turned into this lovely little community of people that just need to say things to people that they trust, and to hear different rebuttals
Yes.
from people that they trust too, because I mean people can disagree with you, um, but in order for that to really impact you, that message needs to be from somebody that you trust and respect, or else that message can get lost along the way. So just find
yeah.
spaces.
Exactly. And just, when you get that icky feeling, like what you were saying, Christina, how many people have been walking around with a backpack full of icky feelings, like, a proverbial backpack of just, that doesn't feel right. That doesn't feel right. That, and just, squashing that down because there's no safe place to ask, like, is this right? Like, should I be doing this? And I think one of the most dangerous things we've done is we've sacrificed our humanity in all of this. Like,
Yep.
I'm a mom first. I'm a,
Hmm.
I'm all of these things before, and when those come into conflict, it's like, nope. I can't separate values under, for science, like,
100%.
and they shouldn't have to be in conflict with each other, but they are right
Yep.
now.
Yep. Absolutely.
So
Well, I feel like we did pretty good. You guys gave some really good questions, and I mean, I hope we continue to expand upon this. We'll see what happens as we kind of go through it. Like Marty said, our field is on fire, so we definitely need to find a way to put it out. And I don't know. Hopefully, it's these conversations that we continue to have, thoughtful, mindful conversations. We can get there for sure.
yeah, absolutely. And as far as the field being on fire, I want to like pull in some of my own spirituality. Like I resonate deeply with the Phoenix, which was all about rebirth from the ashes. And so maybe it's not about preventing the fire, but what are we going to become after it? What's the
100%.
rebirth going to look like? So, and
I
really
love
quickly,
that.
I just want to thank New Armor Media for hosting us, for getting us all set up on this platform.
Yes.
Um, Always so patient with us when we don't sign in the right way or don't have all of our stuff, and making
Yes.
sure that we stay on track. So, thank you so much, New Armor Media. And yeah, I think.
And yeah, so with that, I think we're ready to step off our soapbox. Thank you so much for coming, everyone. And we'll see you hopefully next month. We're going to do a new episode next month. All right.
All right.
Bye
See y'all.
bye.